Welcome to New Zealand Travel News, a segment where we go over the news that people looking to travel to all around New Zealand may care about. We are the team behind New Zealand's largest travel guide, NZPocketGuide.com. I am Robin and this is Laura.
All right, our first piece of news comes from Radio New Zealand, published on the 5th of September 2021, and it is entitled Immigration New Zealand Shuts Its Beijing Office. Before the pandemic, the Beijing office decided half of all temporary visas, about 10,000 a week. Withdrawing visa processing from China ends a long program of overseas office closures, including in India, South Africa, and the Philippines in March. The only Immigration New Zealand offices that now process visas abroad are those in the Pacific. Immigration New Zealand says most staff have been able to work remotely during the lockdown on online visas, including work visas, since Tuesday. But waiting times for paper applications, such as residence and variations of conditions, have been affected. Staff decided 82,000 visas last summer, compared to 200,000 visas in the summer before the first COVID-19 lockdown.
All right, so as you can see, Immigration New Zealand has been going in kind of a streamline cure basically at the moment, and they've been trimming down a lot of offices around the world. And so the very biggest office in India was closed as well not that long ago, and now they're closing the Chinese office in Beijing. And yeah, that's because I think we're going to be seeing a very different Immigration New Zealand post COVID-19, with very different visas, conditions, and visa processing systems and processes and all these kind of things. And so I think they're going to try to centralize everything back in New Zealand to have like one big office where they can do everything under the same rules and under the same people. And they will still remain with some offices around the South Pacific. They may close one or two, but they still remain over there because New Zealand has such good ties with some of the Pacific countries.
All right, our next piece is taken from the spin-off, published on the 8th of September, and it's entitled New Zealand to have vaccine passport by Christmas. New Zealanders will soon have access to digital proof that they've received a COVID-19 vaccination. Colloquially known as the vaccine passport, a government-run app will soon be indispensable as a real passport for international travel. Many countries already require them to sit at a bar or attend a sports game. You can't climb the Eiffel Tower without one. Air New Zealand and Qantas have both announced that they'll eventually require vaccine passports. Proof of vaccination is already a condition of entry for a number of countries around the world. Just as you can't board many international flights now without the right visa, the vaccine passport will be added to your pre-flight checklist. So what will it look like? If you want to travel now to a number of destinations, you need to first request a letter from the government attesting to your vaccination status. It's a significant risk, and there are stories of countries turning down printed documents. Instead, the Ministry of Health says a digital COVID-19 vaccination certificate will be available from December for New Zealanders who want to travel overseas. The term passport can be politically loaded. Think of papers, please. So it's one of the reasons why many places around the world opt to call them certificates instead. New Zealand's app will contain a QR code, a digital signature, and a certificate itself. The certificate itself will be printable. The Health Ministry has been clear that New Zealand's passport is designed for international travel and said nothing about domestic use. Based on how passports have evolved around the world, that won't last. And that was an opinion piece. So,
yeah. So in short, right, there is already such system elsewhere in the world, right? In Europe, they have the digital vaccine certificate. In where is it? Israel, they have like the green passport. So there is system already in place, right? So New Zealand will have something which is very similar, which is going to be something, something digital, and I feel that it's really going to become the same kind of processes than having your visa and having your, your vaccine certificate, your online vaccine certificate, and it would come hand in hand. When you book your flight, you need to check that you have all those kind of things, and that's going to become the new normal. However, the good news is that because New Zealand is going to have such stringent, requirements anyway for people coming into the country, I don't think that we're going to see what's happening in Europe, which is going to be like, if you don't have your vaccine certificate, you can't go inside the bar and all those kind of things. So I don't think we're going to get that far in New Zealand, just because, and obviously the guy that wrote the piece says differently, but I personally don't feel like that's going to be the case, because New Zealand is, getting up to such a good vaccination rate, like people are getting, into it. And on top of that, New Zealand is going to have very stringent border crossing kind of, if you want to enter New Zealand, you will have to be vaccinated. So I think we may get away without doing that. And since we don't have any land border, so we don't have anyone that can just come in randomly and everything, it may allow us to get away without having to show proof of something to get into a restaurant.
Yeah. All right, this is our final piece of travel news before we move on to the travel deals. And this is another one from Radio New Zealand, published on the 9th of September 2021, entitled COVID-19 Delta Outbreak Could Push New Zealand's Reopening Back by Months, Expert Says. Plans to reconnect New Zealand with the rest of the world will be set back, potentially by months, by the current COVID-19 Delta variant outbreak in the country. University of Otago epidemiologist Professor Michael Baker told RNZ Morning Report that was partly due to Aotearoa's limited capability to launch new initiatives, but there were multiple reasons reopening would be pushed back. The most obvious one is exactly what we've been talking about, that our capacity to launch new initiatives is limited, Baker said. It's a finite capacity, and so much of it is now being taken up with this battle against the outbreak. So that has occupied probably a couple of months of effort by the time it's finished, so that will inevitably push out any complex plans for reconnecting with other countries to a greater extent. That will involve, a trial of quarantine-free travel, which itself will be reasonably complex, but the other big change, of course, is I think all countries we're going to be connecting more with now have the Delta variant. It's absolutely dominant. It's taken over the world essentially, so that just makes it that much tougher to do this. The response to the current outbreak has pushed the system to maximum capacity, he said.
So yeah, so the only thing that is to take from this article, right, is that, well, look at the size of New Zealand, right? We have 5 million people in the country. We do not have the USA capacity of almost 400 million people, and then the same thing happening in Europe with millions and millions and millions of people, right? So the amount of epidemiologists, doctors, researchers and government workers that we have access to is very limited. And for this reason, anytime we have like an unforeseen circumstances, such as the Delta variant, such as this new lockdown, well then all those people have to be rerouted and redirected into that new kind of emergency, and all the long-term project they were working on will have to take a back seat for that time. So basically, any work that they were doing onto the border reopening and all that has taken that back seat while they're working on managing this new lockdown, this new outbreak. I was looking for the word outbreak. Not like we haven't heard the word outbreak enough lately, but yeah. So they are working on managing this new outbreak right here, and therefore, well, if we are spending 2-3 months managing this outbreak, well, then that means that, we're going to put all our trial of new borders opening, trial of new border policy and all that back 3 months as well. And for this reason, the New Zealand government did announce a plan for the border opening. We do have a full video on the channel when we cover that. Well, it is kind of likely that all those plans will be pushed back month again. And obviously that's not really a big news, right? We saw that happening, but it is going to affect a lot of people wanting to travel to New Zealand. Anyway, for people which are currently in New Zealand get to travel, we do like to showcase some travel deals. So since New Zealand is at alert level 2, except for Auckland, which is at alert level 4, we thought that we'd give you a deal which is available in the Southern End, which is a great place to travel to at the moment. So Laura, what do we have this week?
So this week we found a pretty awesome deal with Mount Cook Skiplanes, which is based in obviously Mount Cook in the South Island. And yeah, their new deal, which is pretty cool, is the Double Deluxe. So that's for 2 people doing a scenic flight and glacier landing for only $499 New Zealand dollars. And that's such a good deal because usually For one person, it's 399 New Zealand dollars.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's something that we've done before. So you're going to fly around the Southern Alps, you're going to see the beautiful Mount Cook, and you get even to land on New Zealand's longest glacier, which is the Tasman Glacier. It's such a fantastic experience. And yeah, that's basically come down to about $250 a pop if you book for 2 people, which is what this deal is. And I think it's a really good deal because the experience is definitely worth it and super unique. I mean, just seeing the plane like landing, like the Skiplane landing on the glacier, it's really cool.
It's the only place you can do it in New Zealand as well.
There you go. All right, so that wraps up this new segment. Don't forget to like and subscribe to reward all our hard work and stay up to date with all our videos. Plus, check out nzpocketguide.com for thousands of tips, hidden gems, and much more.